Good day, students. Miss Thomas here again. We're continuing with communication, but we're talking about our cultural heritage and how it's passed down through the mass media. Now, it wasn't always passed down through the mass media before. You will see the transition from oral tradition, and it's still oral coming to the mass media, but it was exclusively oral before. But there are many ways that our cultural heritage as a Caribbean people is transmitted through the mass media. But what is our cultural heritage? Our cultural heritage are our language, beliefs, religion, music, dance, art, and dress. The norms and values which our ancestors has passed on to us that define who we are as individuals, as communities, and as a nation. It is everything about you. Culture is not just about dancing and singing. It's the way we cook, the way we speak, the way we dress. It's everything about us. In previous videos, we were talking about how that is being threatened by the global mass media and how the global mass media penetrates into our culture, and our culture ends up taking a back seat in favor of international type culture. But today we're talking about how our traditions and how our culture as a Caribbean people is passed on through the mass media. We have a very rich cultural heritage, and it has been transmitted from generations upon generations to now. And it is mainly done through oral traditions, that is in speech and song. Take, for example, some of our vintage calypsos, old calypsos. They tell us about things that happened long ago. You'll get an idea of how they used to speak and how they will dress. Some of them are really very humorous. You should take a listen to some of our humorous or some of our vintage calypsos throughout the region. So many times our culture is transmitted through oral traditions, through groups. Your families might have stories, folklore stories. You know, we have a lot of stories throughout the Caribbean about different superstitions and stories, you know, about Bria and Nancy. We have many local, what would you call those, spirits, like Laja Bless and Dwens and all these things. I'm sure all up the islands have their own spirits or stories that is unique to their territory, to your territory. You know what? If you know of any, put them in the comments. I would like to know of any new stories that you all know or that has been passed down through your generations to where you know it now, and then you will pass it on to your children. So culture and our heritage is passed through groups, artists, of course, singing artists, institutions, and of course through the mass media that transmit culture. Our cultural heritage takes many different forms. We have visual art, we have the performing art, which will of course will include storytelling and drama, music and dance. And again, we have oral tradition, stories that has passed down. We have mainly, besides stories that pass down orally, meaning by word of mouth, some of our herbal medication has been passed down through oral tradition. Our folk tales, songs, and games have been passed down through oral tradition. Think about how we cook. Many times families don't write down their recipes. Many times they will teach you by word of mouth, and then you stand there and observe. And then you teach your children. So we might have stew chicken tasting a particular way in one household, and it might taste a completely different way, the same stew chicken, in another household. You know, it's unique to us. It's unique to your home, but that is passed down orally. Of course, there are recipe books that you can purchase now, but most of our traditions are passed down orally. There are some cultural groups that pass down, that also transmit our heritage. Of course, they do it, a lot of them do it in collaboration with the government. We have festivals like Carry Festa, Crop Over, all the carnivals that are throughout the Caribbean region. We have museums that preserve our culture, so people in the future could go and see what life would have been like in the past. We have art galleries, national trusts, and archives. All these things are there to preserve our cultural heritage for future generations to enjoy and appreciate and to pass on even further. But how can the mass media help? How does the mass media help transmit our cultural heritage and make sure that it is sustained? They can, one, allot adequate airtime to local and regional programming instead of a heavy focus on international type programming. Local programming and regional programming should be given adequate airtime so people can enjoy, appreciate, and of course get the knowledge and pass it on. Mass media could create new programming, new local and regional programming. That's one way they could contribute. I know long time we had, and it still exists, we have a best village competition. That is through cultural groups, but it is broadcasted through the mass media, so a great number of people could see it and appreciate it. Mass media can make financial contributions to the production of plays, songs, any dramatic presentations, and they could produce local and cultural shows, of course, so it will pass on and stay alive. We need to keep it alive, folks. Let us appreciate our own culture. We have our pan music, we have calypso music. All these things should be passed on and should be alive and well within us. But how can the government transmit or pass on our cultural heritage? These are just a few points on how the government can transmit or preserve our cultural heritage. They can establish a department in government with the responsibility of promoting, overseeing, and regulating cultural programs. We do have, most islands would have a ministry that is in charge of culture and things of that nature, because the government knows how important it is for us to preserve our culture. The government can grant financial support to arts and festivals, and they do. They really do. They probably may be able to do more, but governments do their part by providing financial contributions to festivals and our heritage as a whole. Getting scholarships, could grant scholarships to persons who are interested in pursuing areas in performing arts and drama and culture on the whole. So it won't be a financial burden on the person to do it. If governments can provide scholarships for persons to do such, that will be great. Refurbishing and maintaining of historical buildings and sites. All our Caribbean islands are full of historical buildings and sites that are wonders to behold. In Trinidad, we have many. We have the Magnificent Seven in Port of Spain. There's 7 castles, literal castles. We have the temple in the sea in Waterloo, where a temple was built in the sea. There are many different places that the government can do to keep, even if it's dilapidated, it could be refurbished by the government, of course financed by the government, to preserve these things. You could also tell me some of our cultural heritage sites. You could put that also in the comments. Put some of our cultural and heritage sites. Of course, I can't go through all right now, but I'm sure that you have visited some, and I'm sure you would visit some. Have an appreciation for our cultural and historical sites. Building performing arts centers, that has been done here in Trinidad, and I'm sure it's been done in Jamaica and Grenada and Barbados and all throughout our Caribbean region, where persons who are interested in pursuing performing arts would have a home, and the government could protect creative and artistic work through enacting copyright laws. So of course legislation would help promote and keep our cultural heritage safe and alive. So that is it for today. We spoke about our cultural heritage and how it could be preserved and how it could be transmitted through the mass media and how it could be assisted by the government. So that is it for today. If I miss anything, you could put it in the comments. I'm here to learn as well. So I'm just wishing you farewell, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Take care.